how is Project Mugetsu able to be so popular while being so trash? For those of you that aren't familiar with Project Mugetsu is a Bleach game that released recently, and you might be thinking, oh damn, it looks kind of good from what I'm seeing on screen right now, but the gameplay is much different. And I haven't seen this many YouTubers and players in general have a problem with the game in a while. I've seen YouTubers that don't even criticize games criticize Project Mugetsu. I've seen YouTubers that didn't even hate Pixel Piece hate on this game. So if Project Mugetsu is really as trash as everybody says it is, and the game is this terrible and unenjoyable, why is the game so popular and able to hold 40,000 players consistently? So that's what we're going to be looking at today. If y'all enjoy my content, I would appreciate if y'all subscribe, but either way, let's get into it. First, I want to look at the main issues Project Mugetsu has for those that haven't actually played the game and seen these core major issues. And these issues are funny as hell to me, and the reason I say that is because everybody has been comparing their game to Project Slayer's, and that's because the graphics are very similar. So I assumed, for some reason my brain assumed, oh, they see everyone's comparing them, so they're gonna purposely look at the flaws their competitor has, and then they're gonna implement something better. But unfortunately, I could not have been more wrong on what I was thinking. I was initially thinking that they were just gonna take the graphic style because people naturally like it. I mean, we've seen that people liked it from Project Slayer's, and they're gonna spin it off into their own game, which is one thing, right? I actually think that's a very good way to go about it. In my opinion, I personally don't mind that it looks similar to another game. But as most of you know from now, it wasn't just graphics that are similar to Project Slayer's. The gameplay progression, pretty much everything about this game, down to the pay-to-win aspects, are pretty similar to Project Slayer's. But even then, it doesn't necessarily make it a bad game. You can reinvent the wheel, but expand upon it and make it better. And that's what I was hoping this game would do. But let me explain what I mean by that. Imagine Project Slayer's is a wheel. It's not perfect by any means, but it is a solid foundation. It's good, but it could definitely be improved. So then you have Project Mugetsu come, and they're like, damn, let's reinvent the wheel, but let's improve it, right? You would assume at least that they would be trying to improve the wheel and improve upon the flaws the original obviously had. But instead of actually improving it, now the wheel has a bit of rust on it, it's got some dents, and it's slightly falling off the car. But besides that, the wheel also has the same issues as the original, plus more. And that's kind of what we got with Project Mugetsu compared to Project Slayer's. The only real factor that changes these games from being the exact same is that one of them is based off of Bleach, where the other one is based off of Demon Slayer. But if you remove that fact, which I guess you could compare that to like painting the wheel pink, if you unpainted the wheel pink, it's pretty much the exact same product you're getting here. And the reason I just compared Project Mugetsu to Project Slayer's in wheel terms is because if you do know Project Slayer's, or you have played Project Slayer's, now you know the issues of Project Mugetsu because they're pretty much identical to the issues of Project Slayer's. Project Mugetsu lacks content, which, to be fair to Project Mugetsu, pretty much every game on Roblox suffers with actually producing enough content for the player base. But even for Roblox standards, it's still released with like zero content. The only thing to do outside of progressing and getting your moves is to go and play ranked PvP. So the game's end game is pretty much non-existent, especially for PvE players. If you play PvP, at least you could have some sort of fun late game, but besides that, there's pretty much nothing to do. There are some games that you progress in the game to look forward to the end game, but since this game doesn't have an end game, that makes progression pretty much what you're doing the entire time, since you don't have any end game to look forward to. But a game with a lack of end game content can still work. It is still possible if the game does have good progression, because the progression kind of becomes the game, because after the progression there's nothing to do and nothing to look forward to. But in the case of Project Mugetsu, the progression is also severely unfun. So now you have a game with no end game content and severely unfun progression. In fact, especially if you're a holo, you literally have to AFK as your progression. Your progression is not fun. It has nothing to do with being fun. The progression is set up to have a good end game. You almost feel like you're playing towards something, some sort of reward to have a fun end game, but then when you finally get there, there is no end game. So then, once you get there, it leaves a lot of players unsatisfied, and they feel like they just wasted their time straight up, because now there's nothing to do after they just went through gruesome grinding for no reason, literally no reason. And I think the craziest part to me about all of this is that the game somehow managed to be more pay to win than Project Slayer's, which is crazy to me because Project Slayer's is literally known for being pay to win. And the reason I say this in my opinion is because I played Project Slayer's without spending a single Robux. Not one Robux. I was completely free to play, and honestly the experience wasn't that bad. I didn't feel like I needed to spend Robux. I probably would have if I felt like I really needed to. But in Project Mugetsu, bro, playing without Robux is so unplayable, especially on your race progression, like that game pass is necessary. It is. But let me explain my point better. I feel like in Project Slayers, you're paying to get an advantage. You aren't paying for the bare essentials. It is very pay to win in terms of you can pay for a big advantage, but in Project Mugetsu, it feels like they took out core mechanics of the game and made you have to pay for core things in the game that should have been free. So how come, despite all of the major issues I just said and a million other YouTubers have said, why is the game able to be so successful and popular? And there's a few different reasons in my personal opinion, but I feel like this made me realize a lot of things about Roblox and the current state of Roblox. The first reason Project Mugetsu has performed so well is the same reason Pixel Piece performed so well, despite all the issues Pixel Piece had, and that's the graphics. Good graphics equals good amount of players. I swear this is in some sort of scripture somewhere. Your game can lack content, have terrible gameplay, be a straight bandit beater, and it will still get players, and we've seen this. I'm not even specifically talking about Project Mugetsu, and honestly Project Mugetsu's graphics are really good, and that's one thing I feel like you can't take away from them, and it's the reason they're getting their bag. Hey, I respect the bag chasing, I guess. But I feel like what this really shows is that people don't mind bandit beating. They really don't. As long as they have good graphics that visually look good and some cool skills, they really don't mind sitting there and beating bandits. It's on some like unspoken riz versus harassment type beat. Like if your game does look good, people don't mind bandit beating, but all of a sudden when your game looks bad, damn, that's a bandit beater, it's trash. I don't know, it's like everybody hates bandit beaters until they got some nice graphics, then everybody start itching, everybody start fiending over a bandit beater, literally. But a lot of people don't even realize how many advantages there is to being a bandit beater. If you make a bandit beater, it's simplistic and they're familiar with it. People already know what they're getting into when they're playing your game, and they're not gonna get surprised. They don't have to exercise their brains at all, and they're familiar with what to do. And I think I even talked about this in a different video, but familiarity is a big thing too. Like I seen people quit Arcane Odyssey after 5 minutes because there was cutscenes and they weren't used to it. A lot of people just won't play stuff they're not familiar with. And I feel like a recent example is a game that released the day after Project Mugetsu did, and that game is Voxel Blade. I feel like Voxel Blade is a really good game, but it does take a little bit of time to get into. You're not going to be familiar with it, and it's also not completely brainless. I'm not going to say you're playing chess here, but the game does require you to think about what you're doing. You can't just sit there and M1 the NPCs and then walk from one island to the next island, you feel me? It's not just straight no brain. And that might sound like a good thing that it actually challenges you, but honestly I don't think that's a good thing on Roblox at this point, because every time a game actually tries to do something different, make it so you actually have to go in your own pathway, people just don't play it the same way. Project Mugetsu is completely gapping it player count wise, and to be fair, it's a Bleach game, so you could say there's some sort of advantage there, because a lot of people will play Project Mugetsu, quite frankly, because they want to feel like they're in Bleach, which, to be fair, Voxel Blade is completely made from scratch, so it doesn't have the same thing going there, but you still get the point, if that makes sense. I don't know, I'm not going to go too far into that because this video is about Project Mugetsu, but what are your guys' thoughts on Project Mugetsu? I honestly don't want to send any hate towards the devs or anything. I mean, they did work hard still. I mean, like, I know, like, game creation does take a lot of work to make, I'm pretty sure. I'm not a game dev myself, so I don't want to undermine their work to an extent, at least. And also, I don't blame them. If people are going to buy their stuff and support their game and they don't have to go above and beyond, you know, why would they go above and beyond? But that's just me though, and I'm also open to, if y'all disagree with me, let me know. I don't get mad or anything, but I'd appreciate if y'all subscribe. I love y'all. Thank y'all. Later.